All right, well, I'd like to welcome everybody to John Chavers' talk about his work recently seen when no one else was looking. Currently, he's showing at the Learning Resource Center gallery that's located in the lodgepole building of our library. Um, he is
Six
a
now.
digital artist, digital photographer, or a photographer using digital. Maybe he can elaborate on that as he shares some more about his work. Um, he's an artist that is exhibiting nationally, and it's exciting to have his work on our campus, and I look forward to hearing more about it from him. We'll turn it over to John.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So my name's John. Thank you, Amy, for the introduction, John Shavers. And back in 2019, I had the opportunity to visit Iceland to do a couple of artist residencies in in the summer and early fall of 2019. And many of you may know that Iceland's predominantly known for their tourism now, but in the past they were known for fishing and forestry. When I was there, I spent most of the time in Reykjavik and Akureyri, which is in the north here. And but I also had the opportunity to go to a very small place called Djupavik. So the photography or the photographs that I took while I was there predominantly are of Reykjavik and Akureyri, but there are some that were from that small former fishing village of Djupavik. I didn't, to give you an idea of what some of these places look like, if here, for instance, is sort of a view of Reykjavik, which is the capital, and has about 140,000 residents. In any particular summer season, often the tourists outnumber the residents because there's over 3 million people that visit the country. So to give you an idea, um, this past July, more than 3 million people, or I should say this past summer season, almost 2 million people visited the country, especially after the pandemic. A lot of people wanted to go and start traveling again. So whenever you go to Iceland, you're going to find it's fairly difficult to start taking photographs of things without getting lots of tourists or other people in there. And I struggled with, I like to take images of the scenery without people. And it almost became a challenge. How do I take these photographs when there's 180 or 2,000 people around me, depending on which side I was at? In Akureyri, it was a lot easier because it's not as populated. There's only about 20,000 people, but still, most people, when they're visiting Iceland, they like to go to the north. And when they do go to the north, they tend to fly in through Akureyri because there is a major airport there. But Djupavik, this area of the country is known as the Western Fjords. It's mostly a national park and several fishing villages still. But Djupavik was an old abandoned town that there's really only one road in, one road out, and it's pretty isolated. There's only about 7 houses, and less than 30 people live there. So taking photographs in that particular location was a lot easier to get without any people involved. But certainly in Reykjavik, where there's about 140,000 people, nationwide, there's only about 360,000 people. So predominantly, the majority lives in the Reykjavik region, and then about 20,000 in Akureyri. And I believe Djupavik has 36 residents. And if they're of school age, they have to either take a boat or a bus, which is to a school about 20 kilometers away. So while I was there, I took several images, several hundred, really a few thousand images. Um, and the goal was to take these images without people in them. And like I said, some were easier than others to get. These images have been displayed while I was there in Akureyri at the museum, City Museum, or the museum actually is called Daeglan Gallery. And they've also been featured at a couple of galleries here in the US. All right, if any point anyone has a question or would like some clarification on anything, just let me know. One of the images that you probably are familiar with is the one that's on the poster. This particular image is of the fishing was a large industry in Iceland. It still is, but tourism is the largest industry. Tourism and services and banking. And I believe fishing it's down fourth or fifth now. But fishing basically built the nation, and there's even a museum to the fishing industry. And the museum where these fish heads are displayed is in the city of Reykjavik. And I love the way that they had the lighting that would make these shadows, sort of almost duplicating the images of the fish head. These are cod fish heads. And if you ever get a chance to go to Reykjavik, the museum's actually underrated, the Reykjavik Maritime Museum. And basically, they have this permanent exhibit about how fishing built up the country. So 150 years of fisheries. Fish and focus is what it's known as. I love to play around with black and white images. So predominantly, the images that I took that summer and fall in Iceland are black and white. They are digital. But I love I love how the images have these, obviously the contrast is quite nice. Some of the images, some people have commented that they think that they're a collage, like for instance, this front entry at the West End School, which was near the residency where I lived. But it's not, it's actually a sculpture that's in front of the school, and you can see the clouds in the school here. There are a couple of people in this image. If you look, there's a reflection of a couple of people right here in the bottom right corner. To give you a little bit more of an idea about the location of Djupavik, this is an image of it. And like I said, there's only one road in, one road out. There's 7 houses. There is a nice, beautiful waterfall. Some of you might recognize this because in 2017, they filmed Justice League here, and this is where Bruce Wayne goes looking for Aquaman. So you might recall that movie. The film crew increased the population by over 100 when they were doing the scenes for that portion of the movie. But some of the images that we'll see in a few minutes, for instance, this is the fire truck. I don't know how you can see that. This is a herring factory, former herring factory, from about 1919 to roughly 1954. A lot of the herring industry or herring catch was processed here. And during the summer months or the fishing months, the population would increase to as much as 300 people that come in for the summer to work. In Akureyri, it's a little bit more populated than Djupavik. It's a nice little town that has, like I said, about 20,000 people there, which is obviously different than Reykjavik. It's a nice city to go in and out of to visit the north. I like this particular image because it does show the fjord where the city's located. And another thing that's nice about this, if you look at down here in the bottom left, you'll see my tree. And then you might be able to see this little door right there. That's where I lived when I was there.
John,
And
sorry to interrupt, but maybe the images are moving with the what you're seeing on your end.
okay. What about now?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, sorry about that.
Thank you.
So let's go back.
Can I
So
ask a
this is,
question real quick here?
yeah, go ahead.
Um, our students may not be familiar with what an artist residency is. So can you just spend like, I don't know, just a minute describing what that process was like for you and like how you heard about this opportunity?
Yeah,
Just briefly.
yes, sure. And I highly recommend everyone to try to get an artist residency. But you can go to, for instance, like the cafe website, or I've got a listing of websites that I go to periodically to look for artist residencies. But artist groups, museums, sometimes it's a gallery. They've got living space. I've always applied to those that have living space. There's some very famous ones. Blue Mountain Center, Yaddo, um, McDowell, and many, there's a lot in the United States. But you make an application. Sometimes there is a fee, or I should say most times there are fees, and sometimes they can be pretty high. I have a limit as to, the amount that I'm willing to pay. I I think I paid for the one in Akureyri, I think it was $20 US. The one for Blue Mountain Center, I think was 25 at the time. That's back in, it's still $25, but you basically apply. Sometimes it's for writers, sometimes it's for digital artists, sometimes it's for activists. It just depends on what the organization is trying to achieve. But there are a lot of really good websites. If you just go out and do a simple search for artist residencies, you're going to find that there's hundreds of organizations that want to give you the time to go and pursue your art, to do things. So for instance, Res Artists Worldwide Network, you can go in and you can put in the country that you might like to go to. You can also put in that, you want to do US. And you can also get funding to go to these. But the two that I did in Iceland, one was with the Icelandic visual artist, and the other was with the Daeglen Gallery out of Akureyri. I've recently read that there is one in Djupavik now. You actually live in the herring factory. So they've converted part of the space to accommodate an artist. Typically, the artist will have some space to do a display, to do a gallery exhibition, and also you get to do gallery talks. But just Google for artist residencies, and you'll find a lot of them. I try to budget roughly $200 to $300 a year if I'm going to pursue any of these. And then the applications, they get easier because a lot of the things that you create in one application, you'll be able to repurpose in another application. Just be sure to change the names out. Don't send an application in with the name of another organization. And, do tweak it. They all have their different requirements, but there are lots of them, hundreds worldwide. So you can take the opportunity, and that way you can see a few places. I'm trying to do another one in Iceland, hopefully next summer. And it is in Reykjavik. And I've really fallen in love with Iceland. I've started, 2 years ago, started learning Icelandic. I take online Icelandic classes, and certainly have improved over the course of 2 years. Does that help you folks understand what an artist residency is?
Yes, thank you.
And for our students, or for our students too, on November 14th, when we have our advising hours, we'll touch on artist residencies too.
A couple of the residencies I've done, Blue Mountain Center is that one. They like to take folks who are somewhat activist, but they also do artists and writers. And it's a beautiful, secluded location in the Adirondacks, New York. You get to live in this beautiful old clubhouse, and they cook all your meals. There's place to do your laundry. It's like winning a vacation, and it's a month-long vacation. One reason I'm showing you this one is because they also provide funding. Because when you're away, how do you pay your rent? How do you pay your expenses? How can you afford it? So Blue Mountain Center, they actually provide funding to help you get there and also cover your rent back at home. And they'll pick you up at the Albany airport. That's the closest airport. I think though I flew into Albany and they picked me up in Albany. But it's great. I did this one back in 2015. Um, the one in Akureyri is called Daglin, and they only have an annual application process, and it's passed. But you can go in and find it. You do get the gallery space, and they they have a worldwide cohort of folks that have come and who are coming. And then another thing that I really am passionate about is the national parks in the US. They have hundreds of residencies too. You actually get to live in the park. I've done a couple of those. I did the one at the Smoky Mountains, which is in Tennessee and North Carolina. I also did the one at Hot Springs in Arkansas, and then I guess I could say my favorite was the one at the Petrified Forest,
Oh,
and that's in Arizona. That one was really interesting because at night they lock the park, and you're living inside the park in a little casita. And that one, it was really special. But they have this interactive map where you can see who's got an open residency, for an application. They always have deadlines, so you've got to keep track of it because you might miss a deadline. Some of the parks are more popular than others. Everybody wants to go to the Grand Canyon. But the one that I did, if I zoom in, you see there's the Petrified Forest. And then you can learn more about that particular one. Some of these do come with a stipend. They all come with housing unless it states otherwise. I think the stipend at the Smokies was $400, which would cover your food. And I live near there, within a half a day drive. So the Smokies. Typically, if you do one with the national park, you have to do some type of community activity. And for instance, this is the little house you get to live in the Petrified Forest. So it's nice. It's a privilege too, I think, to be able to do that. So I highly recommend it. Even if you think you can't get in, apply because you'll surprise yourself. Just never underestimate your work. Always believe in what you're doing. Other people, you want to share it with other people, and it's a way of sharing it. All right, back to Jupovic. This is that small little fishing community. It's no longer a fishing community because let's see, they do herring. This is a little herring factory. But this is you might recognize it from the movie where Bruce Wayne comes and looks for Aquaman here. But it's a nice secluded place. If you're looking for an artist residency, they have one in this herring factory now. And I met a lady who was from California who was going to do the artist residency there when I was in Reykjavik in 2019. So she was a performance artist. This is just a shot of Akureyri. It's a little bit different than Reykjavik. Reykjavik being the largest town, largest city. All right, so for instance, in Akureyri, this is one of my favorite images from that town. This is at the junior college that's up on the hill. It's actually a sculpture that I climbed under to look up. So each of these triangles are pieces of a ship that they cut up. And the artist took those individual pieces and welded them together. And in the middle of it, it's a sphere. And in the middle of it, there is a large volcanic rock. Iceland's very volcanic. Well, you may know that there's an active volcano right now.
I think maybe the screen, maybe switching the screen back over. Again, perhaps it's on the, yes, there we are. Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So each of these, the black is basically the metal from the ship. So the artist welded them together to make this globe. It's called the Globus sculpture.
It looks like cut out pieces of paper, like a design collage or something.
It does look like a collage. A lot of people are surprised to learn that it's a sculpture.
Yeah.
Also, one of the nice things about Akureyri and really Iceland in general is they have these really cute houses that, and a lot are made of metal because of the elements are so harsh. So walking just down the street in Akureyri, you might see a door front similar to this, and everyone's very proud of their house. So they decorate it. They'll put flowers out here in the summertime. It's just really nice, quaint, and people are very friendly. That's what after I took this image, the owner of the house came out, and we spoke for about 25 minutes. And she's interested, loves her city. There's a toy museum down the street from here that I went to. I didn't even know it was there, but the residents have given their toys over the years, and they created a museum. Each of the towns in Iceland, they always try to make something that could become a tourist interest. And so they had done a small photography exhibit museum and a toy museum. But there's also a city museum in Akureyri that has a lot of larger exhibits. While I was there was an exhibit by Shoplifter. I don't know if you've heard of the artist named Shoplifter, but so her images or her sculptures are really interesting, and you might want to take a look at her work. Let's see if I can find some of it. Can you see the?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. She's sort of like Eero, which is another Icelandic artist. Her things remind me of sometimes feather dusters. It just depends on what she's working with. But she got the nickname Shoplifter. And these are the ones that remind me of like dusters that you would use in your house.
Yeah.
Another nice thing about Iceland is it's so small. There's only about roughly 340,000 people. It's easy to access people and get to know them. So you might find her in the coffee shop and just start talking with her. Coffee shop in the museum. The same is true for any other artist or writer. But if you've never heard of Eero, Erro, he's also affiliated with Djupavik. He's friends with the family there. There's also a museum in Reykjavik that highlights his work. Lots of cafe scenes. One reason that I would go and take images of coffee shops is because I love coffee. And I typically have a morning coffee, a lunchtime coffee, and an afternoon coffee. So all three of these images, this one, can you see this one? You see the larger one? Just want to make sure I'm sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just about every museum in Iceland offers free coffee. It's part of the entrance, and you can buy this pass. Another great feature about being an artist in residence in Iceland at SIM is they give you a card that lets you get into any museum in the country for free. So that's part of the program, so that you experience other artists' work. And then at the end of that particular residency, there's a group show, and it's very well attended. Lots of local artists do come to it, but this particular coffee shop is on an island called Vide, and Yoko Ono um, put in a sculpture that illuminates in the month of October in celebration of John Lennon's life. So I rode the boat over to the island early in the afternoon, one so that I wouldn't have to deal with crowds of people going over on the boat. And I was surprised that I got this shot because there were already about 500 people on this small island who had come over, and the coffee shop was absolutely full. And the group just left, and the place fell silent for about 5 minutes. And the staff came out and cleaned all the tables. And when I turned around, I'm like, "Oh, this is it. I need to take the picture." And I took it, and I'm like, "Wow!" Because behind me were people like, "Oh, we want to come in. Are you, let us in." And I'm like, "Okay, go in." Um, it turned into a game for me trying to get images without people that summer and early fall. Same's true for this. This is at the Olafson Museum coffee shop. You can actually see the remnants of a patron. This is the same building with where the coffee shop is. In this, go ahead.
Sorry, I guess that's one of my questions. Like, part of that challenge, it must be logistically when you're there photographing. As a viewer, it almost feels like, this is, post people, or like a, a town where people have all completely left, vacated, and these are sort of the scenes of remnants of things left behind, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it was a long time ago, like just moments ago they left. And do you feel like with your process of capturing photographs, like obviously you have to kind of like be at the ready, like that moment you described when you were in the coffee shop. Do you ever find where do you feel compelled to curate things when you're there? Like, do you move an item, or do you, for the image itself?
Well, in terms of the coffee shop, I
Yeah,
left this here at the Olafson Museum. I left that former patron's cup as I sat down, because this is a counter,
right,
almost like a lunchroom counter. And the staff wasn't there. The staff had gone in the back to get something, but there are roughly 20 people, well, roughly about 16 to 18 people behind me
sure.
at the various tables. And I can't say that I put things in the shot, like to make it better or to change it. There were like this one in particular, when we shared this one, the Olafson studio. This was near where I was living in Reykjavik, and I would go there, and it also has a coffee shop. I went there several times because they have several exhibits, some of them lasting a couple of days, some of them lasting a few weeks. And the summer solstice was coming up, and I thought, I love how the light would play in this room, these two rooms. And I thought, well, I'm going to go on the summer solstice and see what this looks like with the sun coming through the windows. And so this is roughly a little bit after noon, 12 noon, with the light. And I think I was really lucky to get this shot. I also discovered that people are pretty predictable. A lot of people are not going to go to the museum when they want to be having lunch.
Yeah.
If you go to a museum that has multiple floors, when they open, go to the top floor and work your way down, because most people will start at the bottom and work their way up. So there were things that I started to think about. How could I outmaneuver crowds? And yeah, so this is one particular shot that I figured that out, because this is the top floor. And they've since changed the exhibit. They've moved a few things, but the floor is made out of stone that's quarried in Iceland, and I love the radiators here for the heat. A lot of the heating is from geothermal activity in the earth. I love that Iceland's really big into using as many of the natural resources that they can that are ecologically sound. This sphere, there's a lot of spheres in Iceland. But in terms of like putting something into the image, placing something, I didn't really do that. Back to your comment about how these images almost look as if society's gone or left. It was pre-pandemic, and the pandemic would hit 5 months after some of these images, and certainly the pandemic was better at clearing out the country than my patience for waiting for these things to clear out on their own. To give you an idea, on any particular day, the airport at Keflavik can process 250,000 people coming in and out. There's so many flights that come in for the summer season, and I think at the couple of weeks after the pandemic started, 3 people got to fly through the airport. I'm pretty sure it's 3 people, because they kept it staffed so that last plane could land, and it had 3 people on it. Here's an image from the herring factory. And it really is, it does feel like you've gone to a place that you're lost, like you're on a movie set or something, because it's derelict, it's been neglected, it's been abandoned. There's only a handful of people that live here, but I love the isolation of going to such a beautifully, a beautiful landscape with the waterfall in the background, the fjord, the smell of the ocean spray. But even in the middle of June, there's ice and snow up on the mountain, so you know that you're in a different part of the world. You're just shy of the Arctic Circle. And let me pull up that map again. Yeah, so here's Djupavik. You're just shy of the Arctic Circle. And another thing about when you go to the northern part of Iceland, these waters are full of logs that fell into the sea in Serbia and no, Siberia, and they float up along these rocky shores, and locals pull them in, and they make things out of them. I was always surprised how creative just your average person is with the things around them. I think if I do get to go back that summer, I think one of the things I'm going to try to do is to focus on the people next, because I never encountered anyone that was mean or surly or didn't want to share themselves with tourists. And they get so many tourists, and they do need I should say they enjoy the tourism, they enjoy people coming, but they also enjoy that it gives them an income, because it is the largest industry now. Another shot that I like is this one on the corner of these 2 streets. And these two streets, this is just south of the church going towards the sea. And yeah, there's no one's even parking today. So, but I would walk on this street at least once a day. And this is early in the morning. And another thing you guys might not um, be aware of, in the month of June, there's so much sunlight. So this could have been at 10 p.m. Yeah, because the sun doesn't, it does go down for roughly about 2 hours in regular. But it never gets dark. This is obviously, it's broad daylight, and it is in the morning.
John, can you share a little bit about your process, as how are you processing these images on the digital end? In your artist statement, you talk about kind of using ancient technology. Um, can you share a little bit about what it's like when after you've captured these photographs, what happens to them?
Well, I like to, perhaps most of you are on the subscription service with the software like Photoshop. Now you pay a subscription, monthly subscription. Just about every software vendor has gone to a monthly subscription service in terms of image manipulation. And I still use older programs that I have the ability to, I'll use the word hack into with macros and other type of programming. So often, well, I'll show you some images that I've been working on where I've manipulated them by writing macros to go in and do certain things. Uh, I've also developed a process where I can take images in the round, and I'll show you some of that. But these images, some of these images are from the show that I had at Lone Star College in Cypress, Texas. And so for instance, this is actually a circular image of tree bark off of a palm tree. So I can take my camera and I mount it on a tripod, and then I have the ability to circle the tree, the entire surface, and then have the image in a 2D format. And then some of the images, when I see something in them, like this one reminded me of a landscape, I colorize them using this one I colorized using. I actually did this in PowerPoint. So an older version of PowerPoint, I wrote a macro that let me flatten it and take out the blurred edges, and then I colorized it with just sort of like a paint tool that's in an older version of PowerPoint. You might not be familiar with what are known as virtual machines. Has everyone heard of those?
Um,
Where,
Sorry, John, to interrupt. Can we switch over to the slide that you're viewing?
oh, sorry about that. So this is an
Oh,
image
wow.
of this is an image that I made in the realm of a palm tree in Beverly Hills. And so I mount my camera on I mount my camera on a tripod, which is on a circular dolly. And then I have the ability, almost like, on your iPhone, how you can take uh, do a pan shot of a big wide area. Well, this one, it's just doing it in the round, and then I get the image in a 2D format, and then some of the images remind me of something, or I interpret them into something. And this particular one reminded me of like a Midwestern landscape. And then I did it in PowerPoint, an old version of PowerPoint where I wrote macros that, and then colorized it. And there's tell me if, let me know if you don't see something. Um, so I'm sharing another image. Yeah, so here's another, this is also a palm tree. The,
I mean,
In
it's,
terms of, did you see that?
yeah, it's fascinating because they almost look like they're like ink drawings.
I agree. They do. Or charcoal. Some of
Right,
the ones,
right.
I've manipulated them where they look a little more charcoal-like. But I tend to develop a series of things and then start to reinterpret them or colorize them or group them in a way. And I've been working with a lot of things in nature, photographing the minutia of things. But this goes back to I think in 2016, I was out in California to work on one of the floats for the Rose Bowl parade or the Rose Parade. And I never knew, but the city of Beverly Hills, each street is regulated in terms of what tree can be on the street. And so one street might be all cottonwood, another street might be dogwood, another street might be, well, I don't think they have dogwoods, but another street, is this type of palm tree, this type of palm tree. And it's all, documented. And if you plant something on the street that's not allowed, you'll be fined and they'll take the tree down. But this was near the hotel where we were. And, so I was just taking a lot of images and got the idea. I wonder if I could take images in the round, around the tree. So you can actually see the entire bark at once. And so I went home and started thinking about it and developing it. And then over the years, I've come to, to create something that allows me to do that. But in terms of going back to your question about manipulating images, I do a lot of manipulation with, little techniques that I've developed. Some of it's, collaging techniques, some of it's, taking images and putting them together. Like this one's obviously just mirroring an image. You'll see in just a second. Yeah, so this was a wooden plank. This is from the Smokies. And it was on a barn that's probably from the 1800s, early 1800s. And I think it's in a town called Townsend. And, so I've just done a mirror image of it. So I do heavily process images, depending on what I'm trying to achieve, or just whatever I like. And I'll show you these. I don't think I ever showed you guys out there any of these, but this is sometimes I just make crazy assignments for myself. So these images that I'm about to show you, I went into a Walmart with the goal of making images out of things that are in this big box store. And I never knew that they sold fresh flowers. So I started taking images of the flowers, and then I went back and I, started processing them. So this is a bouquet of roses. Um, Carnations. I don't know if you can see this one yet. They're almost, painting-like to me,
Mhm.
plastic. These are chrysanthemums.
John, can you touch a little bit more on this? I mean, it's interesting you say like giving yourself this assignment. Um, when do you feel like that is a way that you keep yourself active in your making practice or like your observation practice of either starting a new body of work or um, keeping your thoughts and ideas fresh? Like what is your sort of strategy when you're, as you've evolved in your artistic practice?
Sometimes it's just you get an idea and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder, you take an image or you see something and wished you had your camera, but you keep that idea in your head, or maybe you jot it down in a notebook. I find that over the years, I find that everybody on the planet has a specialty. They're good at a thing or many things. Usually they're best at one thing, and that's like their talent. Um, so I like to watch people, see what they do, how they work something, or maybe what their passion is. And so in watching people, sometimes I give ideas in like, oh, I wonder why that person wanted to arrange that way, or what does she see when she puts things this way? And certainly I like to go and look at images that other people have done. Often it's a trip to the library and just looking at the art books that they have. Or it could be something like I'll show you a couple of images of a series that I'm working on now about vibrations in water, the sound waves that are produced. So the idea that I have is we all could listen to someone's speech, but I wonder how could we see the speech? How could we visualize the speech, or visualize a word that someone says? Like if someone says, "I'm hungry." Well, we all know what that means. I have hunger, but I wonder what it looks like visually, to someone. We all could maybe speak into a microphone and it shows it, but I wonder what it would look like if it was sent through water, or what would this vibration be like in water? And let me see if I can find that. Now, I'll show you a different thing that I have. That's it's a vibration in a small pool of water. I don't think I'm showing it yet, but I've done this. So these are just, it's the same vibration. Um, it's a large image that I've sort of broken up so that you get the idea of like, well, it's continuous. It has a beginning, has an end, but this is tapping on the side of a pool, and that in the sun, and this is the image that I got. So I'm looking at maybe what if I broadcast some kind of speech in a pool of water? What kind of waves would it produce? What would it look like? So I think it's an interest, going back to your question about what is it that what technique do I have to keep things fresh or interesting? I think it's a playfulness. You can't just be regimented like, oh, I've got to take my camera and I need to go find something to photograph. Maybe you just need to photograph your big toe, and then from there, you move into something else. It's keep it playful. If you're finding that it's not playful, if you're sitting in front of your easel or you're piddling with your clay or whatever it is, whatever medium, if you're not having fun, if you're not playing with it, I think you're sort of thwarting the ability to be creative, you know, and give yourself license to make things that aren't so good. It's okay. Not everything you're going to produce is going to be worthy of exhibit. There's a lot. I'm choosing to show things that I'm not ashamed of, or like, oh, they'll hate this. I better not show them that. Or I'm showing you things that I like, that I'm proud of, and I'm hoping you like it. We all put ourselves out there. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's infallible. I'm just showing you the things that I like to do, that I'm playing with, that keeps my mind active and engaged with my surroundings. And I guess it goes back to just be playful with it. Don't be so afraid, like, oh gosh, these people aren't going to like this, or I better not do that. This is, I think this is beautiful. And all it is a hammer beating on the side of a plastic pool that has water in it. And I like it. And that's what matters. And what you like is what matters. As you sit there, I can see you guys sitting there in front of your easels or there at the desks, the tables in that classroom. What is it that you like? What is it that you want to pursue? Don't limit yourself. Have fun with it.
John, do you think your person maybe 15 years ago would have ever asked that question? I wonder what sound looks like in water. Like, do you feel like sometimes you reflect back on the things that you ask yourself through your curiosity and your creative practice? Like, I never would have ever thought I would have been photographing the sounds of water, like captured
I,
on
you know, sometimes you look back and you realize, oh, I did that as a kid. How many of you would go underwater at at the pool, and you would try to talk to your friends? You're like, can you hear me? Or you'd say something and they'd go, yeah, I can hear you. You'd be talking underwater. Um, I can say that that was that was the birth of this idea. But going back 15 years ago, I don't think I would have done sound. I think 15 years ago, I was really fascinated with shadows and and the idea of is every color is what's the equivalent of every color in a grayscale, and how because about 20 years ago, definitely they started recolorizing everything, the black and white. And the curiosity back then would be how they do this. What is it that they're doing, and and why do they go through this? Is it any better when they colorize something? But is there an equivalent for every color on the spectrum? Is there an equivalent in the grayscale for every color? And it's I get ideas from a lot of places, and often it's to you know to to feed my curiosity. But I don't, 15 years ago, let's go back, that'd be, the early 2000s. I don't think I would have pursued what does a speech look like? What do these sound waves look like? But I think it would be interesting to keep exploring this, just to, see what it does produce.
John, do you mind if we open it up to questions?
No, I'd be happy to. Go ahead.
Any questions at all from either the different classes?
Questions? John, I think I'm a little curious about your process. You have this like really this desire to, or maybe this motive, like part of your motivation you were talking about is something to engage your mind, something to be excited about, but there's also something playful to keep you engaged. But can you describe like a circumstance where something that really triggered your mind to be excited, then led you into like a technical exploration to like, you're exploring a media here, and like when you're engaged in something visual, eventually it comes into a technical realm where you're trying to then represent that thing through your media.
Mhm.
Is that something you can expand on?
Well, uh, I'm currently taking a class in scientific images and how people use them to make art.
Mhm.
And uh, I'm sort of like I'm pretty sure I mentioned that I tend to go like I focus inward or focus outward in terms of looking at nature and how big and vast it is, or focusing in on this sound wave, for instance, and using a microscope of various sorts. People have the ability to zoom in and take images of a cancer cell or a cluster of cancer cells, and then they reinterpret that or reincorporate that into something that you don't think it's cancer. You think it's a scene somewhere, or it's an abstract painting. So I got into I found out about this course about about 6 weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to get into it. And I would have never dreamt of doing something like that when I was taking a biology class and you're looking at an amoeba on a slide. Like, oh, is that art? No, that's not art, that's biology. So I keeping my mind open into, well, why is that not art? That is a creation. That it exists. It's got its own beauty. That goes back to the comment that I have had about look to everybody. They do something, they have some type of ability, some type of talent, something to share with you. So I'm open to that. I'm receptive to that, to let it influence me in terms of incorporating it into my craft. And I also try to do things that I would have never dreamt doing. And I highly recommend that to everybody out there. Do something that you're like, oh, I could never do that. Maybe take up knitting. And when you do that, you realize, oh, I should be doing a sculpture with something like this. Or go to those little craft fairs, go to some fall fair where people have made things. Um, I'm really interested also right now I put in a flower garden this past summer, and the beauty of watching things come up out of the ground, how magical, and that whole process of being able to observe it and getting close, and then certain things that I planted, how it brought all these bumblebees, and I really never even looked at bumblebees before, other than, oh, there's a bumblebee, it might sting me, get away. But now I had this large coleus plant that it just brought all kinds of bumblebees. And I would sit out there with a cup of coffee and I would watch them and just be fascinated. That's their art, that's their craft. How they would choose which little bud to go into. And if they bumped into each other, they didn't mind. And so that made me want to learn more about bumblebees. And so I never knew that, most of the bees in North America live in the ground, and it's only the European bees that are in hives. And that bumblebees, it's very difficult to get them to nest unnaturally. Like you can put up a birdhouse and a bird will come, most likely. But you can't put up a bumblebee nest and they come. And they can't figure out why. And so that leads me to want to try next year to make these bumblebee houses and give it, one to each of the neighbors. And the thought is that I'm going to put in natural cotton because there's a lot of cotton grown around me. And I'm going to see if maybe that's what they want to live in, these wooden boxes with cotton. And yes, I just like exploring stuff. And I'm sure I'll document that. And that it's just, I don't know, there's so much that we all should be appreciating and taking care of. And that's a problem in Iceland. They love the tourism, but the tourists, they often go off the road and they wreck things. And another thing about Iceland is they've got huge aluminum plants now where they've got free, and they're ruining the environment on the in the north and on the east, which bothers me. So I hope this ramble helps you to understand that it's all everything can be an influence. You just need to pick out really the ones that influence you the most. What is your curiosity geared towards? But I want to stress here for all you folks out there, always try new things. Make it a goal. I'm going to pursue, how does a book get put together? Like, how does a binding work? How does something work? Just have some kind of curiosity. Look at old books. Just find whatever it is that sparks your energy and creativity. Just don't just don't do the same thing you've done over and over and over again, because you've got more ability than that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps us up. It's a great way to end things. And we appreciate you so much, John, for taking your time out of your day to share your work with us, and work that hasn't been shown to other people before is always exciting that we get to see that. And sort of shout out to all the students that participated and engaged in this talk. We really appreciate that. Hopefully you'll take those little seeds of information shared with us from John, and observation, using your eyes and observing the world around you, I think is a big sort of note to make. And observing the world around you definitely can lead you down some very interesting paths, and always asking those questions. So I will share this recording once it's completed, and we thank you again, John, and we'll be in touch.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good luck with everything.
All right, bye now.